Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Community Office Hours here at Modern with me, your host Tim, and my colleague Sam.
Hello,
And
nice to see all of you.
yeah, we're gonna take you through, as usual, some of the things that are new this week, which we'll highlight for a bit, and then we're gonna bring on a good friend of ours who's waiting in the behind the curtain. So we'll do that. So first thing I'm quite pleased with is that we are finally up to 2,500 recipes in the Modern platform. So we've been inching towards this for a bit, and okay, now we can celebrate that you can actually run 2,500 individual things to help improve your code. And it's just it's been a lot of fun working up to this, and then finally realizing you're there, and already overshot. We're now 28 recipes beyond 2,500. So
Yeah,
pretty
right when we got to
decent stuff.
2,500, I went and added one more recipe, and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to be the one to break the nice round number. But I went and looked, and there were already 9 other recipes, so it wasn't me.
It's hard to stop at some point. So
Yeah.
So that's new. If you want to try that, as always, go to app.modern.io, and you can run all of these. So you can see all the things we can do on open source software. And if you want to run it on your own projects, then of course, get in touch, and we'll try to work something out. Beyond that, we have a new video out where if you want to look at how you can fix vulnerabilities across your entire code base with Modern, then there's now a quick introduction of how to do that in just under a minute. So if you want to send this to some folks who might be interested in seeing exactly what type of vulnerabilities you can find and fix easily, and from there make plans for the things you can't immediately address yet, then have a look at that one. And then tomorrow there is going to be a new Spring Boot release, which of course they come out every half a year, but there are some 155 things that they're going to be working on, they've already worked on, are going to be released tomorrow. And of course, as always, we're already there with recipes. So we're doing a release today to have you ready with recipes to get you to migrate just from the moment that the release is available. So pretty neat. Tune in tomorrow to catch up release and get it up and running and see from there. And then next week, I'm going to be out. I'm going to be at Spring I/O, which is one of our favorite conferences. And I'll be giving a new session there on the fundamentals of migration engineering with OpenRewrite, which is a workshop, which if you already want to try things out at home, it is available from our docs. If you go to docs.modern.io and then navigate on the left to see our OpenRewrite recipe authoring workshop, then you can see all the exercises that you run through to get started with your own recipe library and really create all the things you might need internally to get that going. So have a look at that. We will highlight it in the chat as well. And then, you can just get started if you want already. And from there, build whatever you need and maybe even contribute. And then I'll also be giving a talk, a new session on how we at Modern are applying AI in the work that we do. So some of you might have been aware of this through some of the blogs that we've written over the past couple of months. And there's also some new features still in the works. So if you want to get all that's new there, then be sure to follow along to this session as well. And with that, I think that is it for updates for this week. But I want to quickly call out that we're going to bring in DaShaun, who's a good friend of ours. And he's also going to be in Barcelona. So we met last year, and we'll see each other again. And he's going to do a session with another friend or two friends of ours, Raquel and Jonathan, on exploring the future of the Spring framework. And he'll also have his own session on using Spring Boot on the edge. So with that, I'm going to bring him on, and we're going to talk about whatever we want.
It's so good to finally be here. I couldn't wait. Like, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. Like, this is exciting.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
This is good stuff. I'm grateful for all the work that you guys have been putting in. If you didn't know, I'm a big fan of all your work. I have to admit, I demo OpenRewrite, I think at a minimum 20 times a week. And I will also admit that more than one occasion, I was reminded that a new Spring Boot release came out because of my demo where I was doing an upgrade Spring Boot. And I was like, oh, wait, it's Spring Boot 3.2.5. Look what day it is. That's happened maybe once or twice. I'm not going to. So, yeah.
That's a neat thing about having those version patterns where we just say, give me the latest, and we will get you the absolute latest. So, yeah.
It's slick. I like it a lot. Yeah, so I have a couple of recipes that are like set up as aliases that I use. Hey, I want to turn on virtual threads. I want to switch to Java 21. Spring Cubed is my upgraded Spring Boot 3. That's my set, and then I do those recipes.
How did you get into the business? How did you get into the business of doing so many demos involving OpenRewrite per week?
I'll tell you. I believe that the conversation started early on, like before modern was a thing. It was a conversation. Like I was kind of like bought in. Jonathan is brilliant, and I've appreciated the way he thinks for a long time. So I've kind of always been kind of on the idea and bought in. And yeah, and I was looking for my spot, right? I'm new to this role still. I'm still a developer advocate, but new-ish and trying to find my spot.
Yeah.
So, hey, here's a spot. Here's something that wasn't being talked about as much. So I had a great opportunity. And it was a great opportunity because a lot of the customers that I deal with in this role are not on the latest and greatest. Like it's sometimes it can be difficult. We've all been there.
Absolutely.
And it was exciting for me to have this like really cool and powerful tool that unfortunately still a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah.
So I always look cool. I'm like, oh, you want to upgrade? Let's try this. So I had, I did that. And the feedback is always like, wow, like you gave me something that's really, really valuable. And I just got to like spread the word and I got to get feedback. And actually, a funny story.
Yeah.
When Spring Boot 3 first came out, the first like January, it was just like a given, right? By that time, in January 2023, it was just kind of an automatic. I already had like my talk track and how I was doing things. But in February, it had become, I would show somebody OpenRewrite on a meeting on a Wednesday, and like clockwork, 6 weeks was how long it was taking. 6 weeks, whether I was talking to one person or a team, it'd be 6 weeks, like to the day that I'd have a follow-up meeting, and they would say, hey, where's the recipe for this?
Yeah.
And it was clockwork. Now, the cool thing is that lasted for months. And I got to like have these conversations as people were trying to upgrade and get all the benefits. When Java 21 came around, it like picked up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, now it's not just like, hey, we're upgrading. Now there's a lot more value to be had over this little hill.
Right.
And then kind of towards the end of the year, that 6 weeks was now like 2 weeks, but it was like clockwork. It was like, hey, I showed you a thing, didn't talk to you for 2 weeks, and then, hey, we've got follow-up questions, or hey, we want you to show that to our other team.
Yeah.
So the cool thing, and this is a thing that happened at DevNexus, was I have a handful of demos that are basically, hey, here's how you upgrade, here's why you should upgrade. But I got like different sizes, different lengths of like, how do you want to show it?
Right.
But I set these demos up so that our audience can go and they can use it. I want to show them that what I was doing was nothing magic. Here's the demo, here's the repository. Do it yourself. Go and replicate it yourself. And then they're always coming back with, well, I didn't see the same numbers. I only saw this percentage. Well, you're on a different machine.
Right.
And like, yeah, there's other things, but your code is working. It's upgraded. You're on the latest and greatest versions. And you almost always, you see an improvement in some way, shape, or form, startup or performance.
Yeah.
But you're also more secure.
For sure.
Right? You're also getting all the other benefits that are being delivered by whoever's supplying you your software that you're building your business on.
Totally.
And in DevNexus, at DevNexus, somebody that got the demo, not from me. They got it from somebody else at VMware.
Right.
Delivered it to them. And they came up to me and said, hey, here's what I did in your demo. I was like, my demo? They go, yeah, this is your demo. I see it on the screen here. Yeah, I show that at my work, in our work. And I was like, this is it. Right? If we can do these things where we don't have to go, we don't scale.
Totally.
So we have to
the
deliver
documentation, the videos, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
In such a way, and I call it the easy button. I gotta show them how easy it can be, and make it deliver it in a way that they can go and deliver it again, right? To their orgs and their teams. And sometimes I ask, like I expect that if you come to our session or your workshop, I expect that if you come to this, like, yeah, you got leveled up, but your job is to then go back and tell your team, but not just like, don't rinse and repeat, frame it for your org. Like, why would this benefit your org? Why would it not? Like, what are the reasons? Like, share that, because you got to absorb it. You got it firsthand.
I'm always advising people getting started with like running the big migrations, the Spring Boot, the Java 21, whatever it is, that you're going to get a lot of mileage out of taking those off the shelf recipes and adding in customizations that are specific to your organization, right?
Yep.
We're all together trying to make the open source off the shelf stuff as good and comprehensive as it can be, but there's a limit to that, and that limit is always going to be before you get to any closed source stuff, any proprietary stuff that any particular company uses. But you're going to know that you also need, when we upgrade Java, here at Acme Corp, we also need to update Acme Corp Parent POM and Acme Corp Core Lib. So even just a little bit of knowledge of how to sprinkle into the YAML recipes your own things like that can make it go a lot further and be much more impactful for your code base.
Now there's an ebook that's out that I haven't read, and I'm assuming that I'm just saying things that are already in there, so I'm a little like hesitant, but those things.
You can assume that the people watching haven't read it either, so it's fine.
The parent POM, I always reference common utils instead of core lib. I think core lib's a better one.
Either way.
But you get that concept. But those things that we were so proud of, like, you don't have to write that thing. It's over here in core lib. We were so proud of that for so long, and now that's a smell.
Oh.
Right? Now it's a smell because I don't want that. The way that we develop software has changed, right? Now we're moving to this more like data-centric development, data-centric things, and the value that you get from a common lib or even a parent POM, the value is like
a little diminished.
It's
and I think I will say that you touch upon something that I've noticed that I think something like Modern and OpenRewrite helps with, which is that even if you do everything right, well, one, what's right changes over time as practice happens, and even if it didn't change over time and you did everything right, you still end up in a situation where doing all the right things will still create new problems for you. And I think a great example is like feature flags, where they're good and useful, but then even if you do everything right, use them for their intended purpose, at some point you've got cleanup work that just comes naturally. It's like making a meal in the kitchen, right? You're gonna get things dirty that you will have to clean up, even if you're the best chef in the world. And so being able to use automation to plan for that and account for that is helpful. But I know I'm preaching to the choir there.
Yeah, that one has actually been on my mind a lot lately. Launch Darkly was at DevNexus or DevOps Days, Kansas City last week. So it's just been on my mind, and that has been on my mind as well. And there's got to be a pattern for like, hey, when these things become default, then they should not be a feature flag after X number of versions. Or there should be some like algorithm that says, hey, here's how you do the cleanup. And it kind of lends itself to a recipe of sort.
And we have a recipe for that. So we have that specifically for Launch Darkly. I was at some point I had a 6-hour delayed flight, and you do what you can with the Wi-Fi was terrible, so I could only develop new recipes. I could not download any dependencies, wrote this recipe, and it all works. So
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Have you personally had much experience developing recipes, DaShaun?
Yeah. So this is the other magic thing. So as I go out, kind of share what's out there. The other part is, there's always going to be a recipe that's missing, and that they're going to look for. And that's the most important one. And I started by saying, hey, go and do the easy ones first. Right? You've got 1,000 apps. Even if you only got 100 apps that get upgraded and get on to latest and greatest, like congratulations, because you're more secure, you're better performant on these 100 at least, or whatever it is. But then my mind kind of changed. I don't know if my default setting has changed, but the way that Netflix approached things, they understand the value of all of the apps, right? Every team knows how much revenue, how much costs they're getting on each release. Like they know it down to like the pennies, right?
Right. It's a truism in software development and probably other kinds of development that the architecture of your code ends up mirroring your org chart sooner or later. And I've never worked on Netflix, although that's Jonathan's background, but it sounds like they really embrace that of like, if that's going to happen inevitably, let's just plan how we're going to measure and track and develop to align with that.
And what they did on their upgrade journey is, instead of just going to the low-hanging fruit, the easy things, they said, nope, we're going to go to that portfolio that has the most benefit. If we can squeeze out 10% from that portfolio, that might be millions, right? At Netflix scale, right? So instead of like going for the low-hanging fruit that might move the bar a little bit, they said, no, let's go after this one and let's see what we can do there. Move the needle a lot.
For sure.
And then again, their culture is like, oh yeah, do it when you can, right? It's your responsibility. You know how much is at stake here. But when you've got something that's moved the needle, then that's kind of another part of their culture. You can kind of softly be like, hey.
Yeah. You put some weight on the scale, make it easier to adopt the new thing, for sure.
So yeah, like I've seen it work both ways. Right? I'm happy for all the things that they're doing over there. And then also like the low-hanging fruit way. The question, like if I go, and a lot of times I'm just an advocate, so I come in and I show you some cool stuff and then I leave. And then you call back 2 weeks later. But I always ask, I'm like, hey, go check this out. Go do it. See what you can do. And I try to say like in 2 weeks, like how many things can you upgrade? And if you get stuck on something, like share, like let us know, because Tim has shown up like, oh, we got stuck on this. And then by the time I fly home, oh, there's another recipe there. Like, hey, thank you. And I didn't even like announce it. I was like, oh, I was getting ready to do this thing and it's already fixed. I think that's happened twice where I had just left the customer and was thinking like, oh yeah, he's probably a good idea for a recipe. And then by the time I got home, Tim had already delivered a recipe. So that's been wonderful.
Tim's quick on the draw that way.
But 2 weeks is the number that I put out there. So if I have an audience of 100, I say go and run these recipes against all of your repositories. And then let me know like how you do. Go. Like, did you get stuck? What did you get stuck on? And maybe we can help.
Yeah, so you get the feedback that 2 weeks later they're like, this is great. I want something more. What other feedback do you get?
And I ask them to measure.
Yeah.
So out of all the apps that you ran, all the repositories that you tried to upgrade with the stuff that you had available, what percentage upgraded? At the low end, 15% is the number that has been reported back to me. 15% of portfolio,
like when you say
able
when they
to upgrade with
like
easy
fully
buttons.
automated, like fully from the automation with no further manual intervention.
Yep, nothing extra. In 2 weeks, upgrade on the latest and greatest, running in production. At the high end, 70%.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So, your mileage may vary, and a lot of times, just based on the number they report back, I can be like, oh, did you have a parent problem?
Yeah.
Right? Like, well, what was it?
There was some common detail, something you could add in that would do a big jump there.
The next one out of the custom things, it's Spring Security.
Yeah.
That's the one that we get stuck on the most. And my response, right? Spring Security is a hard one to like do a recipe for because there's so many different ways. So my response is like, hey, don't look for the one-to-one. Don't look for the method to method, filter to filter. Don't look for the one-to-one. And some of the names have changed. Like, don't look for one-to-one because your web security filter config might have been this long and might be only this long in Spring Boot 3. And that seems to get people kind of comfortable, right? When there's like a deleting code on an upgrade. What? Like, that's been the next bucket, though, of hard things to get over. And usually once you do it once, they're like, oh, and that's the way they do it the whole org. So this is where those custom catalogs come in, those custom recipes. So I've got a handful of customers. Again, this is over a year and a half where like, hey, they've seen it. Maybe Tim's delivered a workshop. Maybe Jonathan's delivered a workshop. And they said, oh, I get this. I get goosebumps. This is what they get it. And unlike Kubernetes, I don't want this to go into the Kubernetes way. We don't have to have a bunch of Kubernetes admins. We don't have to have a bunch of experts in writing OpenRewrite recipes. What I've seen work best is a handful, 2 or 3 of those like 200 level engineers that can write recipes, and they can write it for everybody. And they'll be able to say like, oh, hey, they know how to do the math on, oh, this could be a search and replace. We got it. Or, yes, this is a recipe. This is going to give us a ton of movement in the right direction quickly. And they put it into their internal catalog.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've seen... Oh, go ahead, Tim.
No, I was going to say things work so much easier when you do standardize. So if you have that base level, everything the same, and then lift everything up to the new version, then it becomes a lot easier to target things with recipes and keep things going.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In my role, I do a lot of customer success and enablement, and where I have seen like companies that are adopting OpenRewrite and Modern be successful is often when there is that guy in the room who is that principal engineer who's responsible for something happening horizontally across the whole code base, or just as good, sometimes better, is the senior going on principal engineer who's like ambitious, who's like out to like make their mark on the organization, and they're like, the way I get my career to the next level is I'm going to have been the guy that moved the boulder that no one else could move. And the OpenRewrite and Modern are the lever they look to give them the leverage to make it happen. And when
I think
those
that's
people
a great
start
pattern.
writing recipes, I get excited because I'm like, oh, this is going to go well. These guys are going to have great results.
So this is my advice to anybody, that's kind of looking to make a move. They want to, go somewhere. I've seen many people ride a ride, adopt the technology, become an expert in a technology, and follow that technology to the moon.
Yeah.
I've seen many people move their career by making a bet on something and having some success like Kubernetes, right?
Yeah.
On OpenRewrite. It's going to happen. And if you're interested, if you like it, make a bet. It's not going to hurt your career. Make a bet. But you talked about the big moves. One other fun story is somebody that's been in the industry for decades and started by making a name for themselves by doing struts.
Yeah.
Back in the day. But not just doing struts and then leaving, doing struts and doing the next thing and the next thing. And now they're at this VP level.
Yeah.
And they have a relationship, and the CISO is saying like, what's all this struts over here? That's kind of keeping me up at night. What is this?
Yeah.
And it's the VP that wrote all of that 20 years ago. So we have like this interesting situation where, man, that success and that ride, the thing that I'm leaning into right now, and it's like that. Yeah, it's just, it feels real. It feels like it's really like materialized. That the software, like 20 years ago, the investment that you made 20 years ago in struts, it was great. It was the right decision at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But when we started to see that, hey, maybe struts isn't the thing, and we started developing in other things, that was the time to start moving,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we see that all over the ecosystem, right? Like these technologies that have moved and changed, we make different decisions. Bring those things along
Mm-hmm.
is the idea.
Right.
Because if I can build something today, just like I did 20 years ago, I can build something, I can take it to production. I have like maybe that the long tail of the stuff that we built. It looks different today, right?
In what way?
If I've got recipes, if I've got a platform like Modern that's a part of my, I also believe in this centralized pipeline. I want everything to get the same treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say I'm all in on N-0, I mean that from everything from my Ubuntu all the way up to my Spring Boot apps, but also all of the different databases and services that they're connecting to. I don't want to be connected to anything that's N-1 or more. I want to be on N-0 because I want all the benefit. I want all the latest and greatest. I want all of the things. There is no company anywhere that's going to say like, here's our new model.
Yeah.
And it's not as good as the last one. You shouldn't use this one. We cut corners, right? Nobody's doing that. Get on the latest and greatest of everything.
No.
And having everything kind of go through that same process. You're investing in something somewhere. You have a relationship. So it's not just I want the latest and greatest. I also want to be a good consumer. I want to have that good consumer view with my vendors, so that when I have a feature request, when I have something that, oh, you know what? I'm running on the latest and greatest version. You know what I'd like to see in the next version? That's where I want to be. That's where I want our customers to be.
Right. You don't want to be hearing like, I'm having a problem. Like, well, it's fixed 2 versions from the one you're on already.
Right.
Yeah.
I base that.
So one way I kind of see like as an industry, us getting towards an N-0 world is kind of shifting the onus, shifting the burden of responsibility for dealing with breaking changes from the consumers of libraries and platforms to the maintainers of libraries and platforms. And as someone who maintains a library, I can understand feeling like I am asking me in this situation to do more work to keep the library, put out these migration recipes along with actually doing the new version of the thing. But I think there are a lot of benefits that accrue to the authors of libraries and migrations when they do that, because you keep all of your customers on the latest version if you're providing upgrade recipes. And just like from an API design standpoint, I never know the right way to do some code the first time I write it. But if you put out that version of, API version 1, and now you know what you're doing, you see all the mistakes you made. It's like, oh, but now I have users, and I'll be ruining their day if I improve my bad API, I create problems for my users. And I think writing recipes for those migrations can free you from some of the burdens of your short-sighted API design decisions. So I'm going to ask you, DaShaun, how do you think we can convince more library maintainers, more platform authors, that they should be putting out migration recipes concurrently with the new versions of their software?
Here's what I can say wholeheartedly. There's been other players that have come in and tried to do this, and there's been organizations that have tried to do this whole process manually without the library maintainers. And what I can see from conversations, right? This is a passion for me. Conversations that I'm having are like, hey, this is the right way to go. And it's going to kind of take some momentum, and I think the momentum is building. So like when I look at this little part right here, I kind of look at that as like a wave that I've been feeling. Like there's this momentum that's building in our community. That things are heading in the right direction. And the conversation, and still like there was a great Twitter thread over the last couple of days. One of these other projects that I know and love, and they're finally on this move, and they're telling the story, and it's going to take more people kind of telling the story. I'm like, this is pretty awesome, right? It was hundreds of updates. It was like, oh wow, I hit the button and I got all of these. Now I got to go and reviews. Oh, Doggone it, I had all these tests I got to go and review as I upgrade junior versions. Oh, but everything works.
Yeah.
Like, when I say that I believe that we're in 2024, I feel like this is a pivot point, and it's weird to like be in it and it's not like done and it's not moved. Like, but I feel, and I've never felt like this outside of maybe like the smartphone.
Yeah.
That we're at a point where software development is really taking a turn.
Yeah.
And that the way that we deliver software, because Ubuntu, I tell the story. I can go and install, 18.04, and I can upgrade, and I can be on 24.04. And at uptime.
Yeah.
Right? Your phone, it wasn't that long ago when like, oh, would you like to install this update? Restart your phone. We don't do that anymore. Like the value, the expectation, things just move too fast to stop the world and look back. And the technical debt conversation, like I don't hear that word as much anymore. Right? There's a lot of these decisions. Right? I'm listening. I'm definitely paying attention. And I have definitely put these two things together because it's not just about the software that we write. It's about every vendor that we're dependent on. Right? It's not just the software that I'm building my business on. It's also the drivers.
The whole supply chain,
everything. N-0 all the way down. So
yeah, I think you're right. I definitely I definitely feel the momentum because I've worked at Modern since the beginning, which is now almost 4 years. And when I would be talking to prospective customers, people who are potentially interested in OpenRewrite in Modern, a couple of years ago, I was like proving that it was possible to a skeptical audience, right? That like we could use software to generate these diffs, and they were actually pretty good, fairly comprehensive. And people didn't. Well, people bought it eventually, but there was this initial skepticism to get over.
Absolutely.
And now I'm having a lot more conversations where they're like, I'm familiar with and love OpenRewrite. How can we take this to the next level? Which is a much nicer starting point to be at.
So I had a conversation this week with a customer that was doing the upgrade process the hard way. Yeah. I was convinced by the stories that I had been told that they were using OpenRewrite, even though I didn't know for sure. I was just like,
sure.
That sounds like they're using OpenRewrite.
And
I was wrong. They were doing the hard. They have systems in place. We're going to make one edit and we're going to go and test it, and it's going to take some time, but we're going to do all the things to get on that N-0 for our flagship product. And I was saying before, if they can do it the hard way,
you can do it the easy way.
Then you've got zero excuse. You've got zero excuse. And I lost the other part that I was going to say. Like the skepticism. Where they're like, oh yeah, but what about our parent palm? That's broke. I'm done tiptoeing around it. That's a smell. You broke it. You can't do it either. Like, I'm done tiptoeing around it. Because every time something else comes out, that is a bottleneck.
Yeah.
You don't want this thing. You don't want that.
You can only upgrade that shared library that you have that includes Spring Boot specifics. You can only upgrade that when the last service has moved, and that's why you have
becomes an anchor.
Yep,
becomes an anchor dragging on you.
So for the skeptics that are always looking for, they're like, oh, but what about this? Like, no, you can't upgrade that thing that you hired somebody to write in PHP 5 years ago. Like, there's no recipe for that. And shame on you.
They bring it up as a gotcha, and you're like, you're right, but it's you who's got by that, not me.
Yes, they got you. You didn't get me. They got you. Oh, I gotta keep that one. Yep.
Sorry, Tim, you got interrupted. Please continue.
No, good. It's like I said, it weighs you down if you have the shared libraries and all of that. At what point do you feel comfortable introducing a record in your shared library? I think some companies are going to be
at the very end,
a couple of years away. Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe never. And then you get shared library 2, right? You get shared library Java 21 edition, and then you have the
Yep. So again, that core live common utils, I'm second guessing all of those libraries that I've ever written that were the shared library. I'm second guessing. And again, I think I've just learned, and I didn't have, this wasn't an option for me, right? So it made sense in what we were faced with. But again, every time we bring a new innovation, we open up another set of problems.
For sure.
And I think just that's where we are.
Yeah.
And the other part here is when I'm speaking with at like the exec level, and I'm explaining to them that the stuff that they're investing in today, that new feature, that competitive offering, when they invest in it today, if they can do the care and feeding, the maintainability of that software, that investment is worth a heck of a lot more than anything that they've ever done before. So there's like, you don't have to buy it all in, but you have to buy in now. Because if you're not buying into this concept, you're leaving your shareholders at risk. This is another thing I say. I'm like, hey, if your shareholders, your stakeholders, if they knew what version of Java you were running in production,
and they knew the implications of it,
would
the
they be
operational problems,
happy or not? Just that question is like, like you really got to think about it. And you say that in like an exec setting, they're like, what do you mean? Well, let me explain a couple of things.
Just the better garbage collection alone is going to save you on operational costs and performance. Like even if you didn't adopt a single new feature, just your app runs more efficiently on the resources provided to it.
Yeah,
I mean that's direct translation of dollars there.
Oh, and so I oftentimes show like the upgrade. Hey, upgrade to Java 17 first. Like before 3 came out, I was like, hey, upgrade to Java 17 first. Do that and measure. Yep. And then people were like, oh, again, the skeptics are like, but what about if I just upgrade to 18 or just upgrade to 19? Then what? I said, do it. So I've also gotten feedback where they just took their Spring Boot 2.6 code and they did the things to upgrade it to Java 11, Java 17, Java 20, and then 21. And but they measured performance and they showed the graphs.
Yeah.
There's benefit there. And if you're a person, again, looking to expand your career, or if you actually care about the company that you work for,
right,
and you can find these tiny little adjustments, and you can add some of those little adjustments up, you'll see that they turn into massive performance. Your customers aren't waiting as long, right? Their latency is less. Plus, you're more secure when you're doing this upgrade thing. Plus, you might even reduce the amount of infrastructure, right? That memory footprint, the garbage.
Maybe you can cut that AWS bill. Maybe you can drop down to a smaller VM size. I
always try to encourage them to understand how much money saving 42% of your VMs or 40% memory footprint or whatever you're measuring, right? The memory is a big performance or cost thing.
Absolutely.
And measure it. Whether it's VMs that you can give back, or it's, serverless calls that you're not making, etc. Like a lot of these things, you got to know what to measure. Like I can't tell you what to measure. You got to figure it out for your portfolio. Right. But I encourage them to go and do some back of the napkin math.
Yeah.
And I always say hey, if you go and save your company $1 million over a year because you upgraded from Java 8 to Java 21. Because you upgraded from Spring Boot 2.7 to Spring Boot 3.2 or 3.3 tomorrow. If you save them $1 million over the year, you might get a email from your exec. You might get a pat on the back.
Yeah.
Or you might get your team cookies. Who knows? Who knows? But the bottom line is once you have gotten on this ride, once you started to adopt this culture, you're not only more valuable to your company, you're more valuable to the entire ecosystem. Because if I'm doing business with your company and you're not patched, that hurts me. That makes me sad.
You wouldn't want to make DaShaun sad, guys. You got to keep your software up to date.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are at risk when you're not patched, right? And we don't want any of our customers to be on the front page of the news for the wrong reason.
For sure.
So if you can ride this ride, if you can decide you know what, I'm going to make a change and I'm going to be a part of the difference that I want to see in our ecosystem. You can do that. The future is bright for all of us. And yeah, and I think it's going to open a lot of doors for you career-wise. And
sure.
Community-wise. I think it's going to do a lot of good things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't said these things in this way. Like, I feel like this was good. I feel like I'm in a very safe space. And the thing is, you guys, you get it. Like, so I didn't have to set anything up. You understand me. You understand where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
And I really believe that we are in this amazing point in time where the way that software is being developed, the way that software is being looked at as an investment and as a risk in some cases, everything's changed. And we are at a really, really crazy, important time right now. And I'm happy to be here. This is great.
Yeah. It's definitely exciting. There are things that that earlier in my career, before this kind of automation was available, or before I knew about it, before OpenRewrite, there were tasks where I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to do that. It's never going to be worth it ROI wise to try and shift that stone. And a really banal, really mundane example of this was at one point I, for some reason, took the initiative to upgrade the version of check style that my organization was using, and just because of bug fixes in check style between the versions, the same rule set now produced an additional 5,000 violations. So I went and made changes by hand to 5,000 to 6,000 source files to upgrade that version of check style. And after I did that, through just sheer dogged stubbornness, I was like, okay, I promised myself, never again. I'm never going to make the mistake of trying to upgrade something like check style in an environment like this again. But now, several years later, I'm like, well, with my current recipe authoring abilities, that really wouldn't be too much of a problem for me to do now, because I have this capability to operate at a larger scale than I did at that time.
And speaking of tools, let's talk about where OpenRewrite is being integrated.
Yeah.
It's catching on. It's a thing for real.
Yeah.
And
the IntelliJ support for the YAML format's really nice.
It's fantastic.
If you guys watching art on IntelliJ 2024 and you ever edit or rewrite YAML file, you should get on IntelliJ 2024.
My teammate Dan Vega did an entire video on the OpenRewrite integrations with IntelliJ.
Nice.
So yeah, we're all big fans. Yeah. And if I'm allowed, I think that there's a lot of really cool stuff that's coming still.
Oh yeah.
So I'm excited to be here. Things are going great. We gotta keep on going. We have to keep on, letting people know, because there's still people that don't know about it.
Gotta spread the good news.
Yeah, and it's still very grassroots. Get in where we fit in, and it's a good time. Sam, sharing your story of upgrading check style, that definitely resonates with me. I think we share a little bit of career scar tissue, if you will.
Yeah, sounds about right.
That just, again, I feel at home here. It feels real comfortable. So thanks for
happy to have you on, man.
It's good times. Good times.
I guess we're any final thoughts or remarks?
This is good. I'm gonna go back and watch it because I got to write some of this stuff down.
Excellent. Well, hey, I look forward to seeing echoes of our chat here today in your future presentations and talks.
Absolutely will. Absolutely. And I look forward to sitting down and having lunch and more conversation like this real soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
So please, invite me back. Let me come back and tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, particularly if you end up having some new recipe or new frameworks or new things that you want to share, let us know and we'll get you back on here.
Fantastic.
All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot, DaShaun. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
It's wonderful.
Briefly looking ahead, next week, DaShaun and I will be at Spring IO, so we'll definitely see each other there. But if you want to see us, then come that way as well. And I believe, Sam, you are going to give a demo on the modern IDE experience developing in IntelliJ with the plugins that we have, the JetBrains plugin, our own plugin, and working with that. So very, very neat. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And with that, I want to thank you all for showing up. Thank you very much, DaShaun, for joining. And then
Thank you for
we'll
having
see
me.
you all soon.
It was an honor.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.
Yes.